China's economy has been facing many massive issues recently. A lot of media coverage, YouTube videos, professional analysts, and economists have cited many terrible feats that Asia's largest economy could collapse. In essence, it simply means that China's economy is in very bad shape, one that will face tremendous hurdles and challenges in the coming months. However, while most of the information out there is about China's economic catastrophe, we often forget about one other party involved: the world. How will the world be impacted by China's distraught economy? Rather, and more specifically for today's video, how will China's impending crisis affect Indonesia, one of the largest countries in the entire world, and one of the most dependent nations on China for large parts of its economy? With China's economy at severe risk, can it also be applied the same way to Indonesia? Or will Indonesia be unfazed by this entire economic debacle? Well, to understand whether Indonesia is in a dangerous position, we must first understand how big China's economic crisis is and what's causing it, and only then can we foresee whether Indonesia is in the midst of all these. The initial thoughts about the Chinese economy are that it has two big issues, namely, a big debt surrounding its economy and real estate sector. The second issue is linked with a failure in public governance. The first of the two issues is its big debt problem, and for the most part it is linked to the entire economy. One of the most impending issues raised by everyone is the real estate sector. Due to the greed of many real estate corporations such as Evergrande, they had increased the real estate prices in China through various unnecessary instruments, such as pre-selling, which eventually caused the price to bubble up. However, the real estate sector's debt is not the end of all this chaos. For the most part, these are one of the most cited causes of China's collapse. However, we're also forgetting another big factor: the entire country's total debt. According to publicly available data from the Bank of International Settlements published in 2020, China's total debt to GDP grew from 143% in 2005 to nearly 300% by 2020. This simply means that the entire country's total debt is almost 3 times larger than its annual economic output. The cause of all these is used to funnel much of China's economic growth seen today. For instance, their infrastructures, their many programs, and overseas investments. Much of these debts, however, are linked to the country's state-owned enterprises. And since most of the largest corporations in China today are held under the state, the dangers of these corporations likewise fall under the state as well. Furthermore, these two problems are not the only issue China is battling with. Some cited that their manufacturing industry is weakened, their export orders have fallen, and even some rural banks have frozen deposits, which caused outrage among the public. With so many issues, these all add up to the second agenda of the video: public policies. You see, China's leaders have been enacting unfavorable laws in recent years. They have cracked down and crashed the entire technology sector of the country. They have implemented hard lockdowns after hard lockdowns, claiming that they want a zero-COVID policy. This means at the end of the day they're weakening their own economy. For instance, cracking down on its tech sector such as Alibaba has seen its market capitalization fall from its highest peak in 2020 at $837 billion US. Yes, once also known as China's largest tech company ever, has now fallen to a market capitalization of just below $167 billion. In part because of both the current world's tech valuation dropping, but also due to China's tech crackdown, which saw many corporations in the technology sector be fined, be placed with new rules and regulations, and be forced to change their business structures. The second part is China's persistent zero-COVID policy, meaning it is slowing its own domestic consumption. With people locked indoors, of course, it is very easy to say that productivity has been significantly drained. If we go back to China's total debt, real estate bubble, weakening exports, and banking sector, we can simply conclude that the months or years coming ahead of the world's second largest economy will simply be terrifying. It will be a domino effect, where for instance a hurdle of pain felt in the real estate sector will fall into the banking sector, and thus fall into the entire economy. Furthermore, with the government's leaders enacting these unfavorable hard lockdowns, how will they then combat these impending dooms being felt today? This brings us to Indonesia. How will these all impact Southeast Asia's largest economy? We can discuss Indonesia's probable scenario in 3 important concepts. These are the bilateral trade between China and Indonesia, the tourism industry of Indonesia, and the investments made from China to Indonesia. First of all, the total trade made from Indonesia to China is very important. As of the latest data in 2021, total exports from Indonesia to China amounted to over $53.7 billion, a considerably massive amount, and a lot of it is composed of natural resources, such as iron and steel, mineral fuels and oils, ores and coppers, and so on. With China's domestic economy slowing down, it simply means that products sold from Indonesia to China will also slow down. If some of the materials bought from Indonesia were previously used to funnel its housing construction, where it is now slowly being drained, how large will the impact be then? For instance, iron and steel exports from Indonesia to China amounted to over $12.8 billion in 2021 alone. Iron and steel are used in many components around the country. It goes into the construction of infrastructures, power generation, manufacturing, the automotive sector, and so on. With China's domestic economy weakening and export volume from China to other countries having fallen, there's now a huge systemic risk to the entire $12.8 billion steel and iron exports from Indonesia to China. And do take note that this is just one part of the many other product exports from Indonesia to China. Secondly, the tourism industry. Tourism in Indonesia is very important. In fact, it is the third fastest growing destination in Asia. It is a place loved by Chinese tourists, and many reports have published that each tourist visiting Indonesia spends over $152 per day. Now, who has the largest number of visitors? Malaysia first, China second. Before COVID had hit, more than 2 million tourists arrived in the country from China. Now, Chinese tourism is even different. According to a separate report published by an official, they have cited the average Chinese tourist spends about $1,000 a day in Indonesia, much likely driven by the influx of ultra-wealthy individuals spending luxury time in the archipelago country. Furthermore, the average days spent in the country is even 5 days, and with 2 million tourists arriving in a year, in a simplistic calculation, this amounts to over $10 billion in 1 year of spending from Chinese tourists to Indonesia. How big will this be impacted if we assume that China's economy would fall, and its rich people, middle class, and all the other travelers go on to limit their overseas spending? We think it will be massive. Finally, investments are the most important of all the factors. China's role in investments in Indonesia is likewise billion-dollar massive, and every local knows that. However, with China's economy at risk, will it still continue to invest? One factor that most people do not even know about is how big China's technology sector is in Indonesia. For example, the tech company that got hammered recently, Alibaba, has been found to have invested over $1 billion in just one deal with Tokopedia. It happened before the GoTo merger. Likewise, Alibaba has also invested in many other Indonesian companies. But with the company struck with government challenges, will they still be able to provide money for Indonesian companies to use going forward? Or even with China's government in a hurdle of challenges, will they still be able to loan money to build some of Indonesia's infrastructures? And do note that Alibaba is just one example. The entire sector of China is big. A lot of questions can go into how big China is actually in Indonesia, and a lot more of challenges that we have not even cited that are also likewise inside China's overall economic challenges. With an unfathomable risk to China's economy and a massive connection to Indonesia's economy, the impacts that Indonesia would feel are terrifying. While we really can't point out an exact figure on how big it will be, we think that Indonesia may feel like one of the largest around the Asian continent due to China's economic risk. However, while these are all true, China is indeed in an economic debacle, and Indonesia will be challenged. What we're still missing out on is a longer view of the world around us. You see, many people have cited that these could all happen, but they'll only happen in the short term. That's the key word for everything in this crisis. It's all about the short term. In the longer run, in the next decade or so, China's economy will still continue to grow. In fact, it will grow more abundantly to become the largest economy in the world. And since Indonesia is a massive partner of China, it will also in the same concept rise. It will sell more products to China, it will receive more investments, and will be flooded in with more tourists. This is very important because every economic pain is just in the shorter run. Hence why it is so important in anything we expect for a country that we take a step back and look at the coming decades. Not the coming months or even years. But anyway, these are just our one-sided opinions, and there are a lot more stories about China's economy. The entire debacle beneath all of China's own demise is not truly measured here, but rather how large China really is to Indonesia's own economy. What we've even missed out is the probability that China's economy could survive. If they do, of course, much of the implications and challenges upon Indonesia would also disappear, or at least limited depending on China's own economy. But these may be for another video. Do let us know what you think down in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching.